right. I'm going to talk about Agile development for the next 30 minutes. Now, I realize that can't possibly be a crowd pleaser. And some of you might have planned on a different talk, so this may be your time to sneak out and grab coffee. Look, it's bright up here. I'm curious how relevant this thing is. How many of you are using Agile processes in your business today? Give me some hands. Hey, that's a lot. Let me ask you, how's it going? Look, let me ask you on a scale of 1 to 5, how awesome is it? For the person especially who said it was awesome. Look, 5 is awesome when I say go, so it's 5 is awesome. 3 is pretty good, trouble, but not everything's trouble. There's good parts and bad parts. And 1 is, I hate this Agile junk. This sucks. I wish we could do anything else. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how awesome is your Agile experience? 1, 2, 3, give me some number of hands. Hey, there's a few 5s. There's an awful lot of 3s. And I'm looking for 2s or 1s, but there's just a couple 2s. All right, I want to make sure this is relevant. I'm talking about Agile development. I'm talking about Agile development from a product leader's perspective, and I'm sensitive about it because I did get started with Agile development very early on, and I got started in 2000. For those that are good at this stuff, you probably know, hey, Jeff, Agile development was, the term was coined in 2001. How could you have gotten started in 2000? In 2000, I was working for a company that was practicing this cool new process called extreme programming. We'd hired this guy named Kent Beck, who had written a book on the stuff. And while I was working there, the term Agile was coined, and I learned I was practicing an Agile process, and that guy Kent was a thought leader in that space. And at that company, my business card said product manager. So I don't know if that makes me one of the earliest Agile product managers, but I was. But I've found a lot of people that don't like it much. And look, here's some evidence. It's been a little while now, but in 2016, I was at Mind the Product in London, and David Cancel, who is fun to listen to, was giving a good talk, but almost spontaneously in the middle of the talk, he mentioned a couple things about process, and he said the word Agile, and he just winced inside. It kind of hurt him to say it, and he said, I'm not going to talk about Agile, and then he proceeded to talk about Agile. You should look up the talk. You can find the talk on Vimeo, and he said, he said, I don't like Agile, and he wanted to say, it's not that I don't like Agile, I hate Agile. And Agile sucks because all they do is talk about velocity and points, and they never talk about the customers. And then this audience of 1,400 plus people spontaneously applauds. This is how I know that product people don't like this stuff. I tweeted this, I tried to distill what he said, because I kind of care that this Agile stuff works, because we all a lot of people here raised their hands. You are stuck with it, and we've got to make this stuff work. Look, I'm old enough to remember that we were all trying to do waterfall, and we all complained about waterfall, and that sucked. And now we've got Agile, and we all complain about Agile, and that sucks. Starting to think the problem is us. Look, I felt the same. In 2000, when I started with this stuff, I thought it sucked. I hated it. And I hated it because in my first decade of software development, I'd learned to do an awful lot of things. There were a lot of things I needed to do to get successful products out, and Agile wasn't doing any of those things. But what's interesting is there were a lot of stuff that we were doing in Agile development that I wasn't smart enough to do. When things sucked for me before, I used to complain about them. When things went wrong, I used to find other people to blame. But in Agile processes, we learned that we could actually talk about those things and fix things, and things got better. And I saw a level of rigor in engineering, and there were just a lot of cool stuff about Agile. But look, I worked for a startup in 2000 and 2001, and like a lot of startups, this one didn't go anywhere, and I went back to the company I'd come from. I took back my role as a product manager there, and I made the Agile that I wanted, and it came out pretty well. And I know that it can. And a lot of you probably work for Agile companies, and your Agile doesn't suck as bad as other people's Agile, and you wonder what the problem is. Now, one of the things that David said is, look, I hate Agile development. It's all points and velocity, and nobody mentions the customer. And when I tweeted that, and a lot of people retweeted it, and especially a lot of Agile people jumped on that and said, that guy is an idiot. He's never even read the Agile Manifesto, because front and center in the Agile Manifesto, this set of values and principles that drive Agile development, look, the first value talks about customer collaboration. And then there are a set of 12 principles that support this stuff that says our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. You can read. I don't need to read that to you. But look, why would somebody like David say Agile is not about customers, these Agile people are saying? And there is a terrible misunderstanding going on here, and I want to start by explaining that. Now, this is my favorite presentation mode. This is also the mode that works best when you don't have any slides prepared. I want to talk about what I'm going to refer to as a customer vendor antipattern. And I'll explain what I mean. It's why I think it's an anti-pattern. But all of us are very used to being a customer. I know that, look, if you're a customer, you buy stuff. We know what customers are. And if you're a customer and you want to buy something that's a service, something where you need some work done, you need to find somebody who is a vendor. And it's your job, first off, to identify some need or problem you need to solve. And then you need to figure out what you want. And then you need to communicate it to this vendor person. This vendor person's job is they need to understand it. And then if it's a service, if it's work they need to do, they need to figure out how they're going to do this stuff. And, well, how much it's going to cost, because they're going to have to charge you. And they need to give back an estimate. Now, on the customer side, or look, if you're the vendor, you refer to those things as the requirements. And then this weird thing happens, this back and forth negotiation thing happens. Now, this person who's the customer, they're worried about the cost of this stuff. They're worried about the time. And if they can push this person, they can get a better cost. And if they lower the cost, then they actually get more benefit. They get what they want cheaper. And some of us are super good at haggling. Some of us are super good at getting a better price. And I know that, look, I've been in this situation before. I had to have a car repaired recently. It was hit, and we went to an auto body shop. They were charging some astronomical amount, and they tried to justify it, and we pushed back a little bit, and we gave up and went to another place who explained, also gave us an astronomical price, but explained better to us why it cost that, and their price was slightly better. So look, we went back and forth. We eventually went with them. Look, the vendor in this situation, they want to provide good service, but they also need to, protect their organization. Now, in my situation, we eventually agreed. I gave them an order, and, then they had to do the work. Now, they need to worry about, we agreed on scope or how much work needed to be done. They needed to worry about that cost to protect it. And if it got really expensive, they need to charge me back more. They had to worry about time because they gave me a time commitment. And I'm going to worry a lot about quality. And I know if I push them too much, I might suffer on the quality. And they will eventually give me back a delivery. Now, this should smell familiar because we all use it, and for better or worse, this is baked into software development, or has been baked in forever. In the traditional IT world, we refer to these people as the business, and we refer to these people as IT. And what starts to make this an anti-pattern is when these people go into normal customer behavior and beat up people on price, they may be under the false delusion that they will actually be saving money, but we all work for the same company. So any savings comes out of our own pockets, and any pressure hurts us. And look, in the real world, if this was a real vendor, the vendor could tell the customer to take a hike. But if you're IT, you're captive. You can't. And this negotiation gets really tense and tough. This sucked. In the real world, business asked for a lot of stuff, and IT couldn't deliver it. And this is the context, this is the world that Agile sprung out of in the 1990s. Lots of catastrophic failures, lots of unreasonable things, and these people kind of get unreasonable. Well, these people complain about bad requirements, these people complain about scope creep, these people complain those people are slow and their quality sucks. These people complain those people don't understand, because these people are responsible for the results, for building the right thing, and it's their neck on the line. Now, this pattern is preserved in Agile development. In fact, in my first job, my job title said product manager, but in extreme programming, I was referred to as the customer role. I didn't need to rewrite it. It's already up there. But I worked with this other group called the team, or called IT, and this same pattern is preserved in processes like Scrum. We call this person the product owner, and well, these people are still the team. And it's up to the product owner to understand what they want and prioritize, and it's up to the team. Well, these people are saddled with the responsibility of these result things, and these people, they get stuck with, look, if you think that sucks, these people get time, cost, and scope. That sucks. It sucks for everybody. Now, you have to be aware that this is the context this sprung out of. And so when we look back at these things, when we say customer collaboration, we mean collaboration with the business. That's what these guys who wrote it meant. I've been around long enough. I've met every one of the 17 guys that wrote this, and this is sort of what they meant. A couple might have had different shades of meaning here, because that word customer, sort of fungible, it goes anywhere, but they kind of meant the business. In fact, you'll see references to the business over and over. And because those business people are so effing demanding, they want more stuff faster, Agile people said, look, not only are we going to give you more stuff, we're going to give you stuff every week or two, and we are going to measure that stuff so you know exactly how much stuff you're getting. We're going to call that velocity, and we're going to give you lots of velocity, lots of working stuff. Aren't we awesome? Now, what was interesting is David complained about Agile people talking about velocity, but these Agile people think they're providing pretty effing good service. They're giving those customers more of what they wanted. Now, you probably are aware of this by now, but in that original Agile mindset, you are the customer in that manifesto, and honestly, those guys were trying to help you out. Now, we know it doesn't work that way, and what made me uncomfortable in 2000 was I got told I was the customer, and I went, that's weird, I'm not. I tried to start to fix this stuff. And I want to talk about how we start to break that anti-pattern. First, this could have never possibly worked. To have one person that is responsible for results and making good decisions about exactly what to build is just not possible. It's not safe. It doesn't work out so well. If you are responsible for what to build, look, I'm going to reference a model that comes from a guy I've known for a lot of years, a person named Marty Kagan. For people that come from this product world, you should know who Marty is. If you don't know or haven't seen one of his Mind the Product talks, you should. Look, I've known Marty for a while, and Marty's written a fabulous book on product management, and hear really loud and clear from Marty, if your job is a product manager, yes, you are responsible for results, which smells a lot like that. But look, he says you're responsible for a successful product. Now, successful from Marty's perspective is an intersection of three big concerns. First, that product needs to be valuable. Valuable means worth building, worth spending our money on. So if you're going to deliver a successful product that is valuable, you need to understand your organization. You need to understand how your organization makes money. You need to understand your organization's vision and strategy, because you may not be the one coming up with a vision and strategy, but you will be the one responsible for carrying that down, adapting it to the product you're responsible for. Valuable also cuts into, look, if you sell that product, you better understand your customers or the market, and customers are the people that buy that stuff. They need to have a value proposition. And if you're selling that product, especially commercially, you've got competitors. Even if you're building it internally, you've got workarounds or other competitive systems, and whatever you build has to have a value proposition that makes it better than their alternatives. And then if they do choose to adopt it, what they adopt needs to be usable, which means you need to understand who those users are or people who use it. Now, a lot of people, especially Agile people, conflate customers and users, or to keep it straight in my head, I'll think of users and choosers. Users are the people who use it. Choosers decide to use it. If you're talking about something that's a consumer thing, app, they're the same thing. Now, if you're going to get usable right, you need to have practices, ways to understand how they work, those users, and you need to be able to identify problems. You need to be able to identify solutions to those problems, and not just naming features. You need to be able to design those features, and just designing them is enough. You need to be able to prototype, I can't spell that right, and to test this stuff. Now, here's the other weird rub, is because any idiot can come up with cool ideas that we cannot afford to build. The successful product, the one that will get us results, is feasible to build given the time and tools that we've got. And if we're talking about a technology product here, to get feasible right, you need to know how to code. If you're a startup, that's cool, but if you've got an existing product, and I would guess most of us do, you have to deal with legacy code, which means you have to understand your code, and everybody wishes they could start over, and no one gets to, and we have to know how feasible it is to add it to our pile of crap. And then, even worse, there are intangible things that are in the code that customers don't know to ask for unless you screw it up. Things like security and scale and performance. You've got to nail this stuff. And then, finally, to make this even worse, if you are building software today out of today's technology, you are behind. Technology matures fast, it ages fast, and you have to be up on what's coming or what are technology trends. You know that if you're just now adapting to cloud-based architecture, you're catching up. Look, mobile first has been a thing for the last decade. If your company is still saying, I wonder if we should do a mobile app, you know you're behind. If your company can't spell AI, you're way behind. If you are solving, we've got to build solutions out of these things, and what really gets useful is if you understand these trends and you know the problems, applying what's coming to today's problems, that's how you innovate, that's how you get ahead. Here's what Marty's saying is you are responsible for successful products, and successful products are an intersection of these things. You've got to know all this valuable junk, you've got to know all this usable junk, and you've got to know all this feasible junk, otherwise you're a fail. And even worse, if you're the Agile product owner or customer, that's all the stuff you have to know. Now, Marty's not an idiot. He knows that that's an impossibility. And the way you make this work is by being a strong collaborator and a strong leader, because you are going to need to work closely with people who do understand this user junk. We call those people UX people and product designers now. You're going to need to work closely with people who are engineers. And I know that I'm oversimplifying here. I'm leaving out marketing. I'm leaving out a whole bunch of concerns here, but you get the idea. If you're going to be successful, you better work really tightly. And if you're going to make good product decisions, you're going to need to involve all those people. Now, I started my career working with a product team, and I was there. I was working closely with a senior engineer. I didn't have a UX person. That's why I became sort of an okay UX person on my own, but if I didn't have one, I would have worked with a UX person. The company I used to work for got bought by Salesforce.com last year for $2.8 billion. And the guy that was my lead engineer that I work closely with is now a VP of product at Salesforce Commerce Cloud. He seemed to do okay. We worked closely with a team, and I had multiple engineers, and I had testers. And we had everybody we need to make good product decisions and everybody we needed to execute. Because that's what a product team is. And when I first came to an Agile environment, I said, this is hosed because they're actually making me sit in a separate room. And they're making me figure out what to do without being able to talk to these other guys. In fact, I was supposed to know what to do before we showed up at an iteration planning meeting, and that threw me. Now, this idea of a product team, companies that do this well, companies like Spotify call this a squad, and most companies are doing this well, know they have a whole product team. Now, if you're going to execute well, sometimes it takes more than one engineer. It takes 2, 3, 4, and more than one tester, and this team gets big. And one of the concepts I want you guys to be aware of before I drop this subject is sometimes it's hard for a whole giant committee to make decisions quick. So oftentimes we identify a few key people, and we refer to this as a core product team. So healthy teams have a whole and a core, and they know they're all responsible for both cost, time, and scope, and results, because they're whole. It's not broken by that pattern. I'm going to show pictures of a guy I've known for a long time, a guy named Sharif. He comes from a company called Atlassian. You may hate their product, you may love their product, but you got to agree they're fairly successful as a product company right now. First time he walked me around, he showed me where all his product teams sat. He pointed, and they had whole product teams, and he pointed to a few desks that were together, and he said that's where the triad for that team sits. At Atlassian, that is jargon for the core team, because they can't use the word core team because there is a core Jira team that you take the core and then you build it up to make Jira for software development and Jira for help desks and things like that. Now, I was surprised to hear that term, not because it's the first time I'd heard it, but because the only other person I'd heard it from came out of a US company called Intuit. They build tax software and accounting software, and the lady I knew ran innovation stuff there, and she'd been using this term long before there was Agile. This is an old school product term that I was surprised to see strong Agile companies like Atlassian using, because look, there isn't another way to make this work well. We need teams that really work closely together and share these decisions. Now, when I draw that silly Venn diagram, it ought to look familiar to you because it's the foundation behind this what I like about mine, their product as an organization, is this acknowledgement that while you are here, you cannot do it alone. You've got to work really closely with teams. You've got to get used to organizing teams around your products. We hold product teams responsible for results, and we look for product managers to be strong leaders. Now, I want to talk about what we mean by results. I had to find that. This is for Americans who had evil parents. If you were crying in the back seat of the car, it was not uncommon for your mom to turn back to you and say, if you keep crying, I will give you something to cry about. Now, in software development, people have been crying about time, cost, and scope forever. But if you're a product person and you're responsible for results, you know that means you've got bigger things to cry about. Let's look. There's a model I'm going to abbreviate, but I draw all the time, and anybody's seen me present. When we talk about any product development or software development, we know it often starts with ideas, and if you were a startup, they can be ideas for whole new products or features or enhancements. Now, these are the things in that evil client vendor pattern that we start referring to as requirements, but we know that required doesn't mean it'll actually be good or work or anything like that. This is the stuff we start referring to as scope. And we worry about how, we need to turn those ideas into something we can ship. So we worry about the time, and we worry about the cost. I guess I don't need to redraw all this. I've already said those concepts, but that's this triangle thing. But all this stuff is output. That's what we make, and we're concerned about it because we pay money for it. But if you're a product person, you are responsible for results, and results happen after things come out. What we hope is true is that people see this product, they try this product, and they use the product, and they keep using this product, and ideally that they say good things about it. Because if they see it and try it and use it and say it sucks and say bad things and stop using it, that's not good. If one person does, that's awesome. If lots of them do, that's awesome-er. And what we need is a whole bunch of people to do it, because that's going to do things like make our revenue go up. Because ultimately, we work for a company that has a different concern. It needs to sustain itself. It needs to grow. It needs to contain costs. And it's concerned about things like return on investment. If you make a commercial product, you're concerned with things like market share, and you're concerned with your brand reputation. And there are stakeholders in this organization that if you get that curve to go up, they will be happy. They are not happy because they love that new feature. They are happy because we're making money. These people aren't happy because we're making money. They could care less. If you are a product person, you're responsible for all of that. I'll refer to this stuff as outcome. These are the things, we measure that by looking closely at people's behavior. And some systems will call this outcome 2 or long-term outcomes. I'm going to use the word impact for this stuff that happens later as a consequence. Look, we're responsible for all this stuff. And if you thought time, cost, and scope were bad, it's those things that start to matter. Now, the reason Agile people are so good at measuring velocity is because they're in the service business. They generate output for customers. But when you start behaving like a product team, you realize as a product team, we're responsible for both output, executing, and making good decisions about things, and you've got to pay attention to all three. Now, I wince a little bit when David says all that Agile pays attention to is velocity, but all David has to do is start letting people know what else to pay attention to. I did, and I work with teams that are really good at doing this. This is an Agile task board from a company in the US called Snagajob. They do software for hourly wage workers. If you want to work at Burger King, you'd go to Snagajob or Walmart or places like that. But their customers are Burger King and Walmart, and it's fairly big business. And during the week I was there, I watched this team do stand-up meetings like most Agile teams do, and they were super depressed. They stood in front of this board, and most Agile teams wouldn't have been because their velocity is really high. They deliver a lot of stuff, and it's predictably, it's good quality, it doesn't have bugs anyway, but they don't take it off the board when it's delivered. Delivery isn't the end of their story. Those pink sticky notes say they've delivered this stuff, but immediately after it is, a card with a bunch of metrics scribbled onto it, what they're going to measure, and they don't take it off the board until they've had discussions about it, and they discuss every stand-up meeting. And the reason these people are so depressed is because they're shipping stuff, and it is not working. In fact, on that second metric, there's a big top-line metric they're looking at revenue per visit, and it's gone down. And they're stressed because the stuff they're working is not only of no value, it's actually creating drag. It's hurting. It's worse than if they had done nothing. And the team is aware of this. They feel bad. They do not complain about having bad requirements. They don't, when they've got to start making changes, they don't scream scope creep. They're focused on the results themselves. When you start changing an Agile process so teams are aware of it, you do little things, and for the teams I work with, look, if you work with stories, we talk about acceptance criteria, and I will ask people to figure out acceptance criteria, figure out what we will check to confirm this thing is done. And I'll ask people to say, how will you demonstrate it? Because some other things shake out of that. But importantly, I will ask them, how will you measure outcomes after this is put into use? This compels teams to say, well, how will we instrument things? How will it clip into a dashboard utility, like how it bolted into something like Mixpanel or other things like that? And it gets baked in, and teams implement it, and they start wanting to know what those metrics are. If you are a product person and you ship a feature, but your only way to tell if things work is waiting for customers to complain or not complain, that's not good. Don't mistake velocity for value. Now, I rant about stuff like that, and I'm getting teams I work with good at ranting about stuff like that. And I've got a last bunch of things. I'm done drawing pictures, and I've got just about a couple minutes left to go here. Look, if you've got to have teams that feel responsible for results, you've got to start measuring results. This guy's a guy named Archie Miller. He's right now with a company called CarMax. They're pretty big. They're officially this planet's largest used car retailer. If you're in the US, you might know who they are. But I like the picture of Archie talking because there are a lot of metrics behind him. They pay really close attention, and this is an experiment board. They've got a lot of metrics running. But one of my favorite sayings from Archie is that data is exhaust, not fuel. Data will tell you if people used your product or didn't use your product, or what happened, but not why. And if you really want insight, it comes from talking to people. And Archie's good at that, and teams I work with are super good at that. The guy on the right is a product manager. The guy on the left is an engineer. He designs portable printers. The guy in the middle will take pictures of you and your family in front of the Gateway Monument in India, in Mumbai, for 30 rupees. The thing in front of him is a portable printer. It doesn't look horribly portable to me. When you spend a day with these guys in a hot sun as they take pictures, you learn a lot about them. You make friends, you build empathy, you build understanding. The guy on the right in this picture is a product manager. Guy on the left is a UX person. Person in the back is a lead engineer. The short white-haired person has been in a grocery store for the last hour trying to get a print made from her camera, and it sucks. This guy works for a company called Kodak. You might have heard of them, and they're still in business. And they make this kiosk, and I believe Germany is kind of a big market for them too. You may see these around here. The guy on the right has been a product manager for this product for a long time. And I remember when this team came back after working with them for the day, somebody saying, "This has been the worst day of my life." He said, "I never understood how much damage we were inflicting on our customers." I promise you, if you actually meet your customers face to face, you will not prioritize backlog items the same way again. I have lots of pictures working directly with teams as they talk to customers, and there is a rule of thumb. We try and involve team members in this. This guy is Sharif. I mentioned him before. He's easy to find. He's got podcasts, or not podcasts, but webinars, and he's done some writing for Atlassian. When I first met him, he was a Confluence product manager. He's now responsible for cloud-based stuff there. He's a group product manager, has several product managers reporting to him, and he said this to me just a few months ago, that I don't do customer interviews without having a developer in the room. It used to be a good idea, but now it's something he insists on for all the teams he works with, and a lot of other Atlassian teams do it. They are stellar at talking to customers every single week. Again, if you use their product, it may not feel like it, but they've suffered from adding a lot of stuff that people suggested for a lot of years, and now they have a little bit of a debt of doing this, and they're trying to make that better. Look, guys like this work hard the teams work together, visualizing what they understand about users and how they work. Some of you may have worked with practices like Design Studio or Design Sketching, where we pull team members together to sketch what we believe are good solutions and to talk about them and to share them. And we use these to involve teams in a lot of aspects of design. Now, we still rely on UX people to pull all this together, and it is not, it's not designed by committee here, it's designed by community. And we still rely on strong leadership to pull this stuff together. Teams work together building things like simple prototypes, and there's a long story behind these people at HP and what they're doing. They're iteratively testing a lot of variations of a very complicated user interface, even though it doesn't look so complicated. This is a team working together to do this. Now, I mentioned this guy earlier. This is Marty, and he said it, lots of people have said it, but you need to connect your developers with actual users and customers firsthand. They need to be aware of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to summarize this now because I know I'm late, and look, you're not the customer, and you know that, but if you don't behave like the customer and don't treat your team like a vendor, hold them accountable for results, and that means, look, you need to rely closely on a cross-functional core product team that can help you make good decisions. You need to involve your team in all the product work, not just the scope, not just the development. Agile Development gives you lots of cool feedback cycles, and use those feedback cycles to not just talk about velocity, but talk about results. Your job is to lead, and together with your team, take ownership. And that's all I have, and no time for questions, of course. Thank you very much. And now the hook.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you.